So, welcome all my fellow dadpreneurs to yet another live interview with Become a Fearless Father. And I had the pleasure to be accompanied by Hans Ulrich. And now you got to help me. Is it Wyss or Weiss?
Depending on where you are. In Canada, they always said Wyss, or no, Weiss, but in Switzerland, we say Wyss.
Wyss,
So,
right? Yeah, because I remember from my German lessons that EI is Weiss, and then if with the Y, it's actually Weiss. So Weiss it is. First of all, thank you so much for last call. Come on the show. I really appreciate that, Hans. It was completely my mistake, and you helped me rectify my own mistakes. So I really appreciate that.
great
And
pleasure.
great. And so for all of you out there that are coming to join me and have been here for a while, you all know my live interviews are always an hour. That's going to be different today. My live interviews always I prepare topics. That's going to be different today. So we're going to upgrade, or I'm upgrading. I'm putting myself in a tougher spot than I usually am. And the reason for that is that I want to go out of my comfort zone and learn some more new stuff. So what are we going to do? So instead of an hour, we're going to go to 45 minutes. The reason for that is
Mm-hmm.
that I learned a new method called the blackjack method. Blackjack
Okay.
guys work 45 minutes and 15 minutes rest. And apparently they're more focused. So that's my point. I want 45 minutes of focus time with Hans, just completely taking everything out of his brain that I can get and share all those golden nuggets with you. Second, I got no topics today. Why?
Oh.
Because on Tuesday I went on an interview with my good friend Justin Bailey, and he had nothing prepared, and we had the best conversation ever.
Mm.
And we shared the best golden nuggets together. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to do it and try this again. Or also with Hans this time. I'm nervous about it. However, I am looking very much forward to it. So Hans, my first question that I'm really interested in, the side hustle, if we can call it like that, what you're trying to build up is called Gr8t Dad. Tell us all about it. What is it, and what is it that you're trying to achieve?
Well, the main reason why I created Main Dad was being able to help other families,
Mm-hmm.
being able to help other parents who are doing the 9 to 5 drudgery. And it's not a matter of choice, it's a matter of survival for them. And more often than not, they're not afforded the chance, the possibilities, or the experience from real people, from similar situations, and being able to bring them that the experience, the certitude that what we're doing is actually working. And sometimes we hear different things, especially when it comes down to parenting, like free range parenting, or helicopter parents. Um, these are all different strategies that parents uses in order to make their children independent, being able to do what they want. And I've already been put in a situation where I had to grow up fast, and the experiences that I've gathered from my life experience has been so beneficial. Beneficial in the sense that what I learned is something which I've learned almost for like 20 years now, is still in perfectly good use. And this experience is something I want to share because I know how difficult that can be. Being a parent, working the hours, you hardly see your spouse. Your child is growing up fast, and you technology. We call that technoference. Technology is always attracting our attention away from the things that matter, and that's our family. And yet, in order to make it balance, that's where I come in. Being a supply chain manager, I have seen how the effects of active parenting is, the beneficial and detrimental effects of having present parents and having parents which are just not there. Like, they're there physically, but their attention is not on the children or the present moment, but on what's in front of them, what's in front of their eyes, the blue screen, as they say. So my goal, ever since I was on a job search, I decided to invest my time into something which would be beneficial for everyone to use, regardless if it's a man or a woman, straight couple or a gay couple. It's something that anybody can use. Even guardians can use this. Even babysitters can use this. These are different tactics and strategies that you can also use in business, from my experience. So those are the reasons why it's important to be able to, one, understand yourself, what your goals are, your values, and what you want to do with that. So that's why Gr8t Dads was created, in order to facilitate the communication of such wonderful information, which is not just mine, but other people which I've learned, specialists in the field, and being able to share that with everyone.
Exactly. Nice. I like that, man. That's really great. Thanks for explaining it that way. So I got some more questions, but before we go into that, share with us your background. Who's Hans? What have you been up to? What does your family look like, right? Because that's just to put everything in perspective, so everybody knows, like, okay, what kind of dadpreneur is Hans? And probably people are gonna say, "That's me."
Well, this dadpreneur is originally from Canada. I was born and raised there. Both my parents are Swiss. So I was able to speak 3 languages at home: French, English, and Swiss German. And with the time that went by, certain really momentous moments. And when I say momentous, it's really like really difficult moments in our lives, tragedies, which put us all in a spot where we had to grow up fast. So I had to step up to the plate and be an active member of the family. So we adopted 4 children, or adopted 2 children, plus another 2 who were temporarily with us, um, due to family problems. And being an active member to watch over these children and being able to see how their health was impacted by wrong decisions. And it's basically that. I saw what kind of effects bad decisions had on children. And being only like 13 years old with the first experiences, it was a tremendously difficult time at that point in my life. I started a few years afterwards, in order to stabilize my life, with Reiki, being a Japanese healing technique. And also I went to different schools where policing, how to be able to psychologically handle people who are very difficult and de-escalate. So after graduating from Police Foundation in Sudbury, I decided to join the army in Switzerland. Since I'm a Swiss citizen, I'm able to join the army, move over here, start my new life, almost like a pioneer of sorts. For almost every 100 Swiss that are going out, I was the one Swiss that was coming back into Switzerland. So, I was like, a lot of questions were coming in about why, and I said, it's because I want to make a change for myself. And since then, since that great move in 2007, I met my wife. She's a beautiful, amazing woman. She met me at the greatest point, at the most important point in my life, because otherwise I don't know how I would fare off. And thanks to her and family that's with her, the old saying, you don't marry just a wife, you marry the family. And and so no, I married into the family, and that's where the greatest accomplishments have happened. Went to school part-time in order to get myself advanced, going to supply chain, logistics, doing my bachelor's in business administration, all working 90 to 100%. Have to be extremely motivated, extremely dedicated to the goal. And it's often the goal we seek, but we often forget the journey that we have to do to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's often the case for most, that is difficult to just grasp that idea. So now, ever since I was starting to look for another job, I figured, you know what, I'm gonna not only spread my practice of Reiki to share it with the world, to help other people, to be their own lighthouse in the stormy seas of life,
Mm-hmm.
but also help parents make sense of what's being transmitted out there, and businessmen or businesswomen being able to um, get the golden nuggets out of negotiations and such. Because afterwards, I was previously in the aerospace industry, dealing with military materials and such, and negotiated $1 million savings
Mm-hmm.
in order to help the the people of Switzerland, my my citizens, like my compatriots, to be able to say, look, we're doing this for the country, we're doing this for the common goal, the common good of the people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the other thing that makes me so different, is that I look at the bigger picture, not just at the task at hand. You say, oh, it's just work, and I say, no, it's a duty. And it's this duty that I have to my country, who has given me so much. It's not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what, JFK, he said it beautifully. And you know, when he says that, I think, look, it's not just the United States, it's wherever you are. And 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 it's not just for you, but what you can do for others.
Mm-hmm.
And that basically comes down to the motivation, and that's a huge factor, like a driving factor in what I do every day. When I wake up, I ask myself, who am I going to help today? Whose life am I going to change? Even if it's just like one phrase in a text that would probably say, look, I never thought about that. Or me listening, being of assistance. Those are all things which I do. And it's really awesome feeling to do, really awesome feeling to have, to help others. So
Mm-hmm.
that's who I am. My daughter, she's 4 years old, rambunctious,
Mm-hmm.
gregarious. She's an amazing, sweet girl, courageous. And she's also one of those things that gives me that motivation. Even those days which I don't want to do anything, she's like, Papi, can we do something? I'm like, okay, let's do it. Because I see myself in her, and I see
Mm-hmm.
my wife in her, and I'm like, you know what? Honor what part you have in that little being, because that was you before. So,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where basically being attentive and mindful.
Exactly. Awesome, man. I like that you went so deep into sharing that all those details. Very important, and helps me to come up with some new questions as well. I got tons. First thing, what I find funny or coincidence is that actually my life today was about serving. I talked all about it because I think that's one of the most important things. It gives you purpose, it gives you meaning,
Mm,
and it helps you in anything, as a father, as a husband, as a man, as
mm,
a business owner, right? As an entrepreneur.
mm.
So yeah, man, I'm glad you shared that. And I hope people pick that up and written that down. It's like waking up. thinking, like one of the first thoughts that you have is just like, okay, how can I help whoever it is, right? X, fill in the blank, today or now, right? That is such a powerful question. So I appreciate you sharing that. That's really good.
It's my pleasure.
Before we go into other stuff that I find very important that I want to share, but I first want to go into this because you mentioned like you've been taught 3 languages over time, being in Switzerland and being in Canada. How, now I know in Switzerland they already speak a lot of languages, but is there some sort of strategy that you guys have at home to teach your daughter these kind of languages, or is the school system already that good that they're already working on different languages?
The best school is at home. And it's usually there where you have all the university ideas, topics, subjects at home. It's just that how you teach it. It's for us very important that I speak my language with my daughter, and my wife speaks her language with her. So, and we have our own language between us. So it's basically a little bit what we did in Canada, where between us, like between my daughter and I directly, I would just strictly speak English. Strictly speak English. Because already one, you have to go with the language which you feel comfortable with, that you are not doing so many errors, and that this is also important for later when she's going to grow up. She's going to have a dialect. She's going to be speaking fluent English and not in English which is heavy in an accent. So, and the same thing with French. Being able to speak a language, being able to hear it, understand it, and then with like in a native tongue, speak it. And then afterwards you have the school system, who is also a very good support for learning extra languages. In my daughter's case, being able to learn German, like High German and Swiss German, it's best off for people who know how to do the grammatical structure of it, because I'm still working on it. Like, I'm not perfect. It's a, as you may know, German is a very complex language. And if you do not have a mastery on one thing, then it basically, it's like a train wreck. It depends if the train wreck starts from the front of the track of the whole row of carts, then it's going to be really messy. But if it's just something that is just like at the back of the train, it's not so big of a deal. It's a quick cleanup. So, and in my case, it's in the middle. So it's not so bad. It's not so bad, but it's also not perfect. So that's something that I'm working on myself, and also allowing others to teach your children other languages and telling them. And this is really critical and important. Being able to tell them to stick with that one language. Not that you revert automatically to the language that you first hear. Because if you hear my daughter say something in English, that's where people get the idea that, oh, she doesn't understand German, I have to switch to English. Don't do that. Stick with the language, because you're actually doing the greatest service to her, to us, to the whole community, by staying with the local language. And not just not limited to German. It goes for every language. Wherever you are, let the locals speak local. And that's how you have a multilingual, dialect-free child that can speak many languages. And that's huge, has huge benefits.
All right. I appreciate you sharing that, the way that you got it set up. Dialect. I think dialect is something, depending on how the dialect is, it can be really cute, if you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, like Schwarzenegger cute.
For example, right? Yeah, but a French person speaking English, depending on how they developed, I mean, there are that you're like, look, that dialect is or that accent is so horrible. I can't and don't even have any idea what you're saying. However, there's some that you're like, oh, this is actually, this is French English, and it's okay. It's kind of nice. So yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. I spoke to a Dutch guy married to an Italian lady, and they do it exactly the same way. So he speaks Dutch, she speaks Italian, and when they're all together, they speak English. I thought it was a good setup. We did it differently. We do it by days. So we all speak Spanish on Mondays and Wednesdays. We all speak English on Tuesdays and Thursdays. On Fridays, I will speak Dutch. My wife doesn't speak any words of Dutch. And then the weekend, we switch between English and Spanish. So we got that set up. But I'm definitely going to think again, rethink how you're doing it, and discuss that with my wife and see what she thinks. Because it's always important not to get stuck in our ways, right? Just keep trying new methods to see, like, okay, because in the end, it's for our kids, right? It's not for our benefit or pleasure. It's for what our kids really. And I think kids learn anyway. I think in the end, it doesn't really matter as long as you start really young. Because my son at the moment, he's 6, and in the English class, he's by far the best one in the class. And that's just because we just keep speaking English with him. And of course, our English, neither one of us is perfect, but it's pretty good. My Dutch actually sucks now. Sorry.
When you're so long out of the country, it's understandable.
It's horrible, but that's all right. So I appreciate, man. I think that's very important. And I think it's very important for people that do not have that ability. So for somebody that's from the UK and married to somebody from there and they only speak English, I got another tip that you might like as well. There's a lot of people that get au pairs into their families to take care of their kids. And I heard some of them taking au pairs in from different countries and having the agreement that they only can speak their language in front of their kids. And their kids went skyrocketing within their language, because we have no idea how fast our children learn, but I can tell you, it's pretty amazing.
And also, according to studies, the more languages that a child knows, the better problem solvers that they become. Because since their brains are all connected to different areas of the brain, the wiring is going to be connected very differently with more languages. A good book by Joe Dispenza. There's like actually a couple good books, but I believe it's Reveal Your Brain or something like that. Awesome book. I'm going to have to give a quick show note on that. It's about how neuroplasticity, how you can build that into you, and it actually builds stronger connections with your cells and within your brain by having children understand how languages work, especially the critical stuff of grammatics and structures that actually wires their brains very differently, and their brains are going to be activated at the moment they see something similar to that. They actually have a faster reaction time to solve it, because the structure of their neurons have been applied from languages, and it helps them solve problems faster because of that connection.
Interesting. I'm glad we brought the subject up. I never knew that. So thank you for teaching me something new today. That's awesome. Just a quick, in regards to a Gr8t Dad, what is your favorite focus on sharing your value with your audience?
My greatest value that I share with my audience.
Yeah, in regards to, is it because everybody chooses, right? Either you're active on Facebook, and you either go live or you write. Like I go live, right? Facebook is my platform. I go live, and then podcast just because I can take it and can just plop it in, and then I got a podcast as well. But some other people, they prefer talking and not have video, right? So they have a podcast as their platform, and others, they don't like to talk. They don't like to show their face on camera, so they write, right? So they blog. and that's their platform of showing. So I'm wondering,
Mm-hmm.
out of those three, what is your preferred platform? What are you most active on at the moment to share your messages with your audience?
Well, I love to talk, and
Mm,
for me, talking is not an issue. Whether it be between one-on-one or in a room full of people, 20 or so people, talking is something which comes naturally to me.
mm,
And doing a podcast, that's something that I love doing, because you don't have to dress nicely for it. That's the best part about podcasts. And usually, if I just do like a few days of no shaving, I look quite scruffy. And so that being said, podcasts are very, very easy, very effective way to distribute information. And plus, with podcasts, you can just put it in a audio format. People can listen to it when they're on their way to work, and they don't have to see the images. My words, the description that I give is already the images that they need, and they can make their own images in their heads. So that's why I prefer speaking over doing video, because video is actually a whole new dimension of pictures, visualizations, sound effects, and such. With your voice, it's the most powerful tool in the language. Powerful tool in the language. And if you hear just a voice, it has a huge impact. And the whole idea that body language is a very important factor in communication, it's actually so true. But when we cannot see it, then we have to hear it, and we have to feel it with the with
mhm.
the, with the tone, with the if there's going to be like a intonation or high pitch, it makes a huge difference in holding the audience's attention.
Exactly. Exactly. Great, man. I appreciate you sharing that. So the other day when and I think for my was I'm doing all three at the moment, trying to just reach out to all three people, because there are also people like to listen, people like to
Mm.
see and listen, or there's just some people that like to just read, right? So I had
Yeah.
this post, as you remember, in regards to what was it about? Oh yeah, in regards to it's better to understand than it is to be right, right?
Mm.
And it came down to an argument that I was having, and you went live on that as well. So I thought maybe it's cool in this setting that we're up at now to give you a chance to share a little bit in regards to arguments. I think it was 3 tips, right? Because
Yeah.
I was
Three
listening to it,
tips.
I'm like, man, these are really cool tips. So if you could just give a highlight on what you shared, just a
With
summary of
pleasure.
what you shared, that would be awesome. I think that'd be really valuable.
Well, from life experience,
Mm-hmm.
if you are going into an argument thinking that you're going to win, you've already lost.
True.
And and that's already that'll always kill what you want, and that is a resolution, a friendly and mutual beneficial resolution. And that is where it's important to know what you want. Okay? And being able to also know how to say it, because as I said in my podcast, we're very egoic.
Mm-hmm.
We are very egoic. I just have to say one word, and that could either bring up uh, an electrical shock of joy or agreement or visceral disagreement. And when it's a visceral disagreement, that's where you have an egoic entity. It's like a split personality. We all have it. It's just that we won't admit it.
Mm-hmm.
and and when we use absolutes, such as you always, you never, it's always me who does this, you are never there, or these are all absolutes. These
Mm-hmm.
are all generalizations, which are basically putting it on the person's forehead and saying that, look, you are at fault.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an automatic trigger. That's an automatic trigger for the egoic mind to say, why you little, and and that's where, to avoid absolutes, to avoid words which will trigger the egoic mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy. And that's why you have to go with the second tip. Second tip being able to listen, being able to hear what they're saying. Really, it's more like a Rogerian, Carl Rogers being a fantastic psychologist. And anybody who doesn't know Carl Rogers, I highly recommend listening and reading what he does. What he does. He's a psychologist who developed a new type of therapy, and the therapy would be that he would just listen. He would just listen to the patient, and let the patient speak their minds. And once the patient has said what he needed to say, that's when the practitioner of Rogerian psychology would speak, would ask questions, or to fill the gaps what was missing. And that's where it's important to be able to listen and repeat.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're able to listen and repeat, then the other person felt like, he's been listening. Wow. But in order to do that, that comes the third tip. That is having respect. If you do not have respect for yourself, being able to hold yourself to a higher standards, then you are highly likely to offend the other person inadvertently,
Mm-hmm.
because you're not being respectful towards yourself. And then when you say, if I say this, would I be upset if someone asked this to me? So it's basically the old proverb, twist the tongue 9 times before you speak one word. And that's what it is. So being able to have respect for the words that you speak and for the person who you're speaking to will have already huge benefits, because people will feel that you're being respectful.
Mm-hmm.
You can manipulate people. People can probably feel it or not. But if you're being disrespectful, for some people, that's unforgivable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that you shouldn't cross. So showing respect, showing dignity towards yourself and others helps to have a better argument, a fruitful argument.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're not having any arguments, I hate to say it, but you're a Krakatoa ready to blow.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that we often believe, that a marriage that doesn't have arguments, oh, how wonderful. Well, there you go. Oh boy. It's just a matter of time, and you just need one small spark in a powder keg, and then boom. And it's not cool. It's not cool. So again, to repeat, one, being able to avoid absolutes, being able to avoid generalizations. That's already one way to avoid triggering the egoic mind. Second is also being able to speak to the other person after listening.
Mm-hmm.
A good quote from Simon Sinek, the author of Getting to Why, or I think it's Getting to Why from Simon Sinek.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome book, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
He says that be the last to speak. Because when you're either in a boardroom or a family meeting, when you say already in advance that, look, there's a problem, but I need your info, already that's setting you up to getting biased information. But when you say, look, I'd like to hear about what you think,
Mm-hmm.
without saying anything else, you're basically saying, look, feel free to speak, and I listen. And that allows you the time to at least think what you're going to say, how to say it in a way that the other person will be like, you know what, I like that idea. Instead of the other person going like, like Italian style, like with the fingers like that. So as good as it is in the boardroom, it's also as good in the kitchen with your family and when you're talking. So and that's very critical to understand and to put into practice. And then thirdly, being able to respect the other person. Respect. Because when you have respect for yourself and the words that you speak, the other person will feel respected. And they'll treat you very differently than compared to someone who is just being a jerk.
That's awesome, man. And yeah, what you mentioned, this is just not in regards to an argument that you're having with your wife. This can be an argument with a friend, an argument with your kids, an argument with your parents, with a client, with anybody, right? And
yes.
And that's the awesome thing. That's how I got to this whole thing, because I'm reading Millionaire Success Habits by Dean Graziosi, which is Millionaire Success Habits. It's all about business and finances. But all these things so far that I've been learning, I've been implementing more in my private life than in my business, which is actually really cool. And giving me a lot more confidence, a lot more courage to do some certain things, because as you mentioned, if you're not talking, then at a certain point you need to get that courage to step over that, like, oof, now it's time. We got to have this conversation to continue to grow as husband and wife. So that's why I wanted to ask you, because I really liked your view on this, and I think your 3 steps are absolutely spot on. So I want to share this with my audience, or have you share it with my audience, because, man, if people would follow that while in an argument, it will blow you right open. You will learn so much as a man or as a husband or whatever, right? And that's what we hear. At least that's the way I see it. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing that again, sharing some extra quotes in there as well. I love Simon Sinek, by the way. I invited him as well to come on the show. No luck so far.
Well, keep trying. You'll get him.
Oh, yeah. I'm in contact with their staff. However, when I contacted him the first time, he was writing a new book and had no time. So I'm actually hoping to see when, because the catch is, and maybe this is for you, if you start like looking for these guys, once they come out with a new book, that's the best way to ask them again. Because I want to go on as many shows as possible to talk about their book. So fingers crossed.
It's an opportunity. Exactly.
Good for him, good for me. So that's what it's all about. So yeah, man, I really appreciate that. So what else did I want to talk about that I found important? You mentioned your daughter. She's very energetic, right? Very energetic. Exactly. So is our 3-year-old, and has a difficulty, especially. So I'm hoping that this is the case with you as well. If you ask him to clean up, it's like he starts cleaning up, right? He grabs the first 2 things, gets his mind on another toy, and 5 other toys come out, and he starts going all crazy again. What's your strategy to make sure that in such situations, your daughter complies, if you can say it like that?
Well, there are different ways to do it. There's the old carrot and stick approach. To get the carrot or the stick. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. The other approach, which I use, is basically making it a game. Making a game out of it. Saying that, look, this room is messy. We have only so much time left. Let's see how fast we can get this room cleaned up. And, when the child is starting to clean up, you basically have them do most of the heavy work, and you're basically guiding them to sort out this toy goes here, this toy goes there, and then you applaud them every time they do something right. And instead of criticizing, you say, oh, nice try, that actually goes over here. and going with constructive methods to reinforce better habits. And to add another option to that is when the child becomes older and becomes very knowledgeable how to clean up his or her room, put an incentive in terms of rewards. Say, look, clean up your room, you'll be able to have a little bit of money so you can get whatever you want from the store. You know, it doesn't have to be anything huge, just a few dollars or something like that. But they also see the value of hard work pays. And then you're also giving them the opportunity to think, look, either I save the money to get something big, like teaching them the capabilities of budgeting and executive function, saying, okay, I'm going to go like this because instead of having something small now, I keep doing what I'm doing, then you have yourself a bigger prize. You know, and why go with one marshmallow when you can get two? You know, that whole option there. So, and that's how I encourage my daughter. That's how I encourage my daughter to be an active member in the family, in order for her to feel that, look, she is a member of the family. She has lots of benefits, but she also has responsibilities. And having her understand that responsibility and to actively do it, that's sometimes tricky, but it's doable.
Exactly. I like that approach. I've written it down, and let's try that. It was just now because my oldest went with my wife to the playground. He wanted to go as well, but he decided first he wants to stay with Daddy, and was playing with the puzzle. The whole puzzle over the floor. He got frustrated. He wanted to go to the playground as well. So I just told him, so you want to go to the playground? You got to pick it up. So it's more the carrot technique, right? So next time I'll try the turning into a game one and see how that goes. But yeah, you're right, man. They change so fast. And you like one time you're like, okay, yes, this is working, and then you try it again next day, and it's like, why is this not working? It worked yesterday.
You have to adapt. You have to adapt. You know, that's the other thing. It's really a matter of ingraining it in their minds that this is normal. This is normal what we're doing. Clean up. That's our responsibility, and that when you are responsible, you get the benefit of a clean room and a reward that goes with that. And that's something that children are very clever. Are very, very clever. They can go around that any way, shape, or form. It's just a matter of also putting the limits on that and saying, look, I said no, and it stays no. And, you know, they can run to mom or to grandma or whoever is in the same household at that time. The answer is still no. And being able to deal with the consequences. And if they decide to go through with what you didn't want them to do, putting down the consequences, letting them know that, look, we said no, you decided to still do it, consequences. That way that you can register that, okay, if I do this, there's a consequence, but I'm aware that if I always stick to the rules, then I'm not thinking outside the box. I'm not being independent. And that's also something I teach my daughters, be able to think independently. Not to be marching to what everyone else is playing, marching at her own drum beat. And some parents are probably not so happy with that approach, but my daughter is like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, I gotta say, I completely agree with that. We're trying to teach our 6-year-old right now as well, because he comes every time. He's like, I'm hungry. Yeah, and I go, so what's your point? You want me to magically appear something? I'm like, dude, you know where the stuff is, right? You know how to grab your little stool so you can put it down and step on it if you need to get like a glass or something. Go ahead. Right? And then they make mistakes. They spill something. They make something nasty. They make something dirty, whatever it is, right? Great. Love it. Because that's the way we learn, right? So now what? We have to
exactly.
So, yeah, man, I like that. That's a great golden nugget to finish this off with. Let me ask you, Hans, for all those out there that have more questions, I actually have a couple in my head, but that's fine. How can they get in contact with you? How can they follow you? What's the best way for doing that?
Well, you may follow me on Facebook. I have actually my own website for my Reiki practice, which
Okay.
is Solar Reiki. You may follow me there because as an active parent and also a Reiki master, Reiki practitioner, I share bits of information, bits of good old fun that you can use every day. And it's something that I give. I give without expecting anything. Like the best information is the kind that comes from the heart. And for me, that's what I do. I like to do that. There's also my other podcast, Gr8t Dad podcast, which so far has around 20 different podcasts, some for meditation, others are for just tips and tricks on how to raise healthy and independent children, and to keep parents sane. That's probably the toughest one. So, so you may find me there at Gr8t Dad podcast, and I'll have that link for you available. And I'd be very happy if you would drop by and listen in.
That sounds great. So for the people that are watching now, sorry, there's no links anywhere in the comment section. However, for the people that are watching the replay on YouTube or listening to the replay on my podcast, the links will be in the description section. You can click on it and follow Hans wherever he goes. And well, he just shared 3 tips. Besides all the golden nuggets that he shared, I'm a big fan of the 3 tips that he shared in a lot of detail. So you can check out that podcast, which he is even more elaborate, but there's tons of other great stuff. So I highly recommend it. For now, this is the live. We'll be going live for the interview again tomorrow. Hans and I will be talking a little bit more, but for everybody else, have an amazing rest of the day, and we will talk very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Are you still meeting up with your friends now that you're a father? Kids making you stress out. You got no time for yourself to work out, read, or relax. Can you still remember the time you were hanging out with your friends, feeling energetic, happy, and confident? Spending time together and talking about your life and your crazy dreams. You're feeling alone now, don't you? No one to share your challenges with, and you're just running around from one storm into the next. Well, it's time to change this now. Join me and the Brotherhood of Fearless Fathers to speak on a weekly basis with like-minded dads to crush your challenges, face your fears with determination, be held accountable, and regain control of your life. If you want to become the hero your family needs you to be, then go to becomeafearlessfather.com/brotherhood. I'm looking forward to seeing you on one of our next calls.